end of the day, you probably had a lot of inspiration. I saw a lot of talks. I saw a lot of interesting stuff. When I got asked to come here again, I wanted to write a different talk than at the awards in Amsterdam, mostly because I always write new talks. I speak at a conference a week at the moment, and I always write new talks because I want to keep myself out of my comfort zone on stage, and I want to have new things all the time, which is kind of ironic because this time I want to talk about a lot of old things. And I want to talk about them because I think we have lost a bit of the WWW in the awards thing. We've been talking about great technology and we've been talking about like amazing, inspiring things, but a lot of them have been for the people who can afford them and sometimes the people who cannot afford them yet. So we come up with an audience of the future that might want to have our stuff, which is great when you work on VC money, but not necessarily on your own. And I also, when people ask me to write like my slide presentation, like what's your title? What's your presentation about? I don't know. Normally I write it on the plane over. So I got like totally crazy and I was like, A New Hope, the web strikes back. Because I'm like, okay, I tried to keep myself out of my comfort zone as well with my presentations. It was like, you got to do something really cool now. Because I remember like there was A New Hope, then there was like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Then nothing happened until last year when another Star Wars movie came out. And I got a bit overboard with it, so please bear with me, but it was quite fun to do as well. So I'm Chris, I'm CodePoet on Twitter. If you need information about technology, pictures of hedgehogs, kittens, and these kind of things, I'm there. Don't tell me your political views, do that face to face, because then we can slap each other and have it out over a beer rather than just being nasty to each other on Twitter. Twitter started this wonderful thing. It was this great way to get your friends and your people you looked up to and they talk to you. And nowadays it's become this backstabby high school environment where I'm just getting crazy. And I'm like, no, I don't want to argue with you. I just want to have fun with you. But it's still good to send things out and from time to time to complain about airlines and get free stuff when you have lots of followers. I want to talk about something progressive, something that was and is uniquely shaking the foundations of a technological market that we live in, and that is and still will be the web. And it's quite funny that we keep forgetting about what kind of a gift the World Wide Web and the internet is to us. I travel a lot. You go to places like India, Africa, where people have the school education system is not available to them, but they have internet access. They can go to Wikipedia and look something up. They learn something from that thing that we by now think, it's not cool enough. It doesn't have VR and smell and these kind of things that I want to do now. For them, it's like a way out to learn something amazing. And we're so bored with the internet that we're stupid enough not to look at Snopes.com before we like something and share something on Facebook that has been proven wrong 10 years ago already. We should use this as a resource, as a learning resource, to become better people every single day. Instead, we put emojis in there and like animated GIFs from TV series and say that's creativity. Now, the web, as every teary-eyed and weary web developer will start their presentation with, is like, was invented by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Why is that not working? Okay. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, or Timbo to his friends. He's the inventor of the World Wide Web and the internet before that and the standards, and it's based on HTTP, HTML, all these wonderful things. The epitome of this was this picture that you see here, which was the Olympic Games in London, where he typed in for millions and millions of people on television that this is for everyone, this is the open web, you can all be part of this. Then he typed it into Twitter, which is a closed environment of closed source technology owned by a company in San Francisco, is beyond the point. He just wanted to show that the web is for everybody and everybody can be part of it. And that's what the great thing about the web was about. First of all, it's distributed. It's not maintained by one company. It's not maintained by one server farm. It's not maintained after one login. It's distributed across the world, across different data centers. Whatever you put on the internet stays there for quite a while. People like Beyonce and others had that with a problem. They wanted to get it removed. It just doesn't work. Even Prince, with all his power and all his magnificence, couldn't remove his photos from the internet. And a lot of people don't understand that this distribution is a gorgeous, gorgeous way of getting your information out there. When my connectivity is flaky, I can still see the thing in my browser that was there two hours ago. That's good. I might get it from Google Cache when something gets deleted or you manage to delete your server. The Wayback Archive of archive.org, the Wayback Machine shows what your website looked like 20 years ago at times, which is super embarrassing, but also beautiful because it shows how far you've come or what you've forgotten. It's independent of hardware, software, and ability. And that's something we forgot very, very quickly. You cannot tell people what computer, what browser, and what ability to have. It's quite fun that we tell people, well, you can't tell blind people to be able to see your colors, right? But we can totally tell them to buy a new phone. Somebody who actually lost their job and is happy to have to be able to pay the bills, I should have a different phone to see your wonderful website or your restaurant website where you show them 70 megabytes of video of the chef being in the kitchen instead of telling them where the hell the restaurant is and when it's open. And it's also based on open, documented, and agreed protocols and technologies. And that's another thing that is very, very important, that we have a standard to work against and not something that the company du jour thinks is an environment that we should build our stuff in. Of course, there's a lot of innovation going on in companies and in closed environments, but having a standard to work against is pretty amazing. Having a screwdriver at home and being able to fit that into a screw in almost every screw in my house is because we have a standard. Of course, we use butter knives and stuff and break both the screw and our knives, but the screwdriver is there because it's a standard, and that's a good thing. It sounds boring, it sounds mundane, but it means that we have something to start from. It gives us a certain reliability. You cannot shut down the internet, no matter what Trump thinks. You cannot get rid of it because it's distributed and not owned by one company. And it also has a trustworthiness to it because no company owns it. Several watchdogs are there. A lot of people look into it. Governments try to control it and people work against it. And it's a wonderful thing that I can trust this thing to be there rather than one company telling me, well, if you can't afford it with your data plan, then you're not going to go online. That was the whole net neutrality thing was about as well. And it's a home base to explore from. It's like we got these standards, now build on top of them and be creative and do some really cool stuff on top of those instead of replacing them with something shinier, cooler, closed. Okay, you can do that, but you will limit the people that you have. We call this the web. And it's not cool anymore. I remember when I started, it was like new media conferences on cross-media production and these kind of things. I started my own business in 1997 in Germany where I said, I'm a web designer. And they're like, is this some craft? What are you doing? Like, is it art? And I'm like, yeah, you don't pay taxes as an artist in Germany. So I'm like, yeah, it's art. I'm using computers to build websites. Oh, computers is not art then. Damn it, you know? And the web has been good to me and to all of us. First of all, the web is non-intrusive or aggressive. It's there when you need it. You can connect with your phone to it. You can go to a library. You can go to a school, you can go to a bank, you find everywhere ways to access the internet. It's not in your face where it's like, oh, are you good enough to do it? You're all invited. It's built for human interaction and as a read-write medium. And that's something that really annoys me, that most of the replacements of the web or the closed environments consume, 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 consume. We don't care if you write, only a few people write. If you think you're not a good writer, write. If you want to learn something, teach. There's no better way to learn something than teaching. I've been a professional JavaScript developer for 6 years. I got lots of money. I got money for my job. And then I wrote my first JavaScript book, basically for my parents to have something that they understand. So they had a physical book in their hand that they can show people. That's my son is doing that. Not before like, he's doing computers, so he can repair the washing machine. No, he can't. So I learned my trade by teaching, by writing a book. And please use the web to put your thoughts out there, to write your thoughts down, to create something. Create silly things, create stupid things, create amazing things, create insights. Don't be afraid to be a writer and a reader of the web. Don't just go into one environment where you get like tidbits of information that people think are clever and share and like and hope that people are rehashing other people's stuff. You all have something important to say, please say it. Don't spew hatred. Don't put people down. Everything you win on the internet by making somebody else feel worse is not a win for anybody. It's open for professionals and enthusiasts alike. That was the really interesting thing as well. You don't have to have a development degree. You don't have to be a programmer to build something on the internet. And that was pretty awesome. I was at work in a radio station and I went on the internet and I found people in China. I dropped my job and wrote my first website, and that's how my career started. I'm like, this is cool. This is the thing that's going to replace radio. Radio's still around. Cool. There's great stuff for radio, but the internet is read and write. This is amazing. I can be my publisher. I can be my own person on the internet. The link is what makes the internet so cool. And this is like when people get very very emotional about the internet. They're like, oh, the link is the most important thing. The link is what gives the web its power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates it. It binds the web together. You know what I did there. But it really is. It is that was the main step where Tim Berners-Lee said, like, hey, instead of having a telephone number to call and going through a navigation system and finding a file, I can make a Word clickable or even space barrier to go to another document. I don't need to know the telephone number to connect to another BBS or Gopher network or other things that I know because I'm old. And then we, of course, thought the web will be with you always because it's distributed, and we've kind of thought it's always as cool. You know, when I started with the web and I started finding out how the table layouts worked and how to do like forms that send things around and DHTML, like clocks that followed your cursor around, I found that all cool. Nowadays, we try to get new developers to understand the gift of the web, and we try to explain it with the things that we found cool back then. It's a bit like going to people and explain that plumbing is amazing because water comes out when you open the tap. Kids nowadays don't even know what offline means. They just expect online all the time. So we cannot have the same lingo, we cannot have the same kind of attitude towards the web that we had back then. The good thing, how we learned to appreciate the web and the things that we built was our environment was rubbish. Our computers were terrible, our connectivity was like and you couldn't be on the phone while you were online and these kind of things. So we appreciated it much more because it was just for us something new. And nowadays, you're like, I've seen invitations on Facebook where like 5-year-olds said, like, I'm not going to come to your birthday because I heard there's no Wi-Fi. So people are used to these kind of things, but we became the craftsmen that we're now because we had bad environments. We felt the pain of our end users and we felt the benefits of writing something that is applying itself to the environment rather than trying to dictate a certain environment. We always failed with that. Remember when it said like, this website needs 800 by 600 pixels and Internet Explorer 6. You still see these things out there. They don't even work in modern browsers because people thought that environment is forever. That was always a bad plan. And then we had standards where we started like, it was instead of having the Netscape and the Internet Explorer way and the Opera way and having to write everything for every browser, my main skill as a starting web developer was to know how browsers mess up. Like I knew what is wrong in all of them and how to work around them. That's nothing to be fun with, that's nothing to have fun with, and that's nothing maintainable as well because you keep just being the garbage man of the internet, so to say. And then we had standards that finally got defined as a best practice to do. And all the browsers started supporting these standards. Partly this information came from W3C, partly it came from the browser makers. So we had something to work against without having to test and plan and know all the faults of the browsers out there. And that was amazing for us that had to suffer through the browser wars of Netscape and Internet Explorer and Microsoft and these. It was an amazing thing to have. Nowadays kids like whatever, you know. But then we got cocky and we're like, okay, this is the way we work. This is how professionals work. If you don't work like us, then you're actually not a professional web developer, and it became dogmatic. If your code didn't validate, then people said it's a bad website, although browsers fix everything for you. We just, as browser makers, we gave up on expecting good quality from developers. 80% of most browsers is being lenient with what comes in and still showing something to the end user, because the end user should not be punished by programming mistakes of the web developer. So we were all like, do or do not, there is no try. And of course, only a Sith needs an absolute, which is quite funny because do or do not is no try is an absolute. But let's not question George Lucas's writing. Ever. Midichlorians. Anyways. And we got cocky about this over and over again. We're like, we say people have to follow a standard and have to follow a certain methodology and have to be in one way or another. If your website doesn't do this, you're a bastard and you shouldn't be on the internet. We forgot that the web was defined for everybody. for enthusiasts, for just people that want to do a what you see is what you get editor and make their little website, government website almost, little website for their florist or something like that. You get companies like Squarespace and Wix right now that make a lot of money with what you see is what you get editors for websites. I thought this was over 20 years ago. But they're not. We, as the people who make the web standards, were not good enough to explain to laymen out there how to build websites. That's why visual editors are still an important thing for a lot of people. And power to them. I'd rather have that on the web than something that somebody put together that doesn't work. So that's all good. Of course, when you become dogmatic about something, when you say like, oh, it has to be this, then there is a backlash from developers because we're all snowflakes and independent people, and we all think we're doing our best stuff, and companies keep telling us. I mean, we get job offers every single day. It just drives me crazy that how we complain about how terrible our market is, and comparing it to like my brother who's a fireman or my sister who works in an unemployment office. We have it well. We're really, really well off. But at the same time, we're like, okay, we've got to be different. So the first thing that came out was JavaScript. JavaScript 997. Done in 10 days, a language that is a creative language for the web, a dynamic language for the web that allows me to generate almost everything else. I can generate HTML with JavaScript, I can generate CSS with JavaScript, I can generate images, music, video. I can use JavaScript for everything. And then I have full control over it as the developer. I have an object model. I can create things. I've got access to every frame in an animation, whereas with a CSS animation, I don't have that, and I have to trust the browser to do it properly. So we got really excited about JavaScript and everything we can do with it. And we also replaced some of the standards and said like, well, these standards don't really work across browsers properly, so we use JavaScript to fix that. And we thought this is the way of the future because it's very simple to do. That's how you get links like that on the web, like ahref hash. And as you can see, it's a slightly broken thing, and it also is a problem if JavaScript is not there. Now, there's always the thing about, oh, what about my users who turn off JavaScript? They're freaks, don't worry about them. Nobody turns off JavaScript. We made it really, really hard in browsers to turn off JavaScript nowadays, but JavaScript can be broken in so many ways. So many things, so many moving parts happen until a JavaScript gets from the internet onto the user's computer, gets executed, interacts with the document, and you hope that everything is happening in there. So relying on JavaScript is always a bit of a gamble, but I'm going to come back to that in detail. Of course, that is still, if it had a name, and not the funny quote that keynote put in there, if it had a name on the hash and it would point to a target in the page or a target on another document, this would still be a valid HTML link. It makes total sense. It's an anchor that points to something. Then, of course, you got the other way of doing it, where you find these JavaScript void zero links, which I never understood. For every developer who's as lazy as me, every keystroke is a prison. JavaScript void zero by definition does nothing. Why do you type that many things and they do nothing? It shows to me that you don't know what you're doing. You're just basically like, oh yeah, it worked on the other side, let's copy that over and it's totally fine. So make sure nothing happens when you click on that thing. Okay, JavaScript void zero does nothing with lots of code. That might not work. Great, let's do that. Now, JavaScript is not fault tolerant. What does that mean? HTML is fault tolerant. If you don't close a p tag, the browser closes the p tag for you. If you put a div inside a span, the browser realizes the div is a block level element and moves it outside of the span for you. When it encounters some invalid character, it basically does something with it. It tries to fix things for you all the time. That is part of the HTML5 parser in every browser right now. As I said, we gave up on developers doing the right thing. We fixed stuff for them. CSS is also fault tolerant. If a CSS finds a selector like -WebKit, -Flugelhorn or whatever, it says, I don't know this, okay, I go to the next line, fine. Don't worry about that. If there's a syntax error, like a quote around something missing, CSS parser says, probably the stuff inside the spaces is what you want to do, I'll show that for you. An error like that in JavaScript, God has forsaken us, we're all gonna die, this is it, I'm going to the other room, you're a bastard, I'm not gonna play with you any longer. So JavaScript is not fault tolerant, and that is good. That is also a dynamic language that is fault tolerant would be super dangerous, because there's, let's go that into detail later if you want to talk to that over a beer or something. A lot can go wrong on the way. The script might not be found. The script might not be loaded. Your mobile provider might minify scripts to get down on traffic. People might use proxy browsers like Opera Mini or Chrome Turbo in their countries where it's really expensive to have something. So your JavaScript gets minified and sometimes cut off. It's more than like 15K or something like that. You never know what can go wrong in JavaScript, and there's many, many steps that go wrong between you thinking it goes there and it executing on your computer. We might never be aware of that because that this is an issue, because we ourselves don't suffer these kind of things. Our end users have broken and terrible environments at times. They have flaky connectivity. And this is not people with cheap phones or people in third world countries. This might be somebody that sits in London like me with a 560-pound phone on the train. Or it might be somebody who goes to a conference and expects the wireless to work. Or it might be that they have an ad blocker because they think they're clever to block ads, and it also finds that it doesn't load the JavaScript when the ad blocker is enabled. These kind of things. We don't know though, because in our case everything is fine. Everything is under control, situation normal. We got a MacBook Pro wired into a connectivity of 100 megabit. Great, we go for that. It's quite fun coming here because in London I've got a 25 megabit, in Sweden I had a 2 gigabit at home. And people here are like, this is almost fast, this is amazing. But we're just like, okay, it works here, fine. Everybody has a MacBook Pro nowadays, right? That's what we actually aim for, because we don't want to talk to unwashed rabble with like bad connectivity. We want to have beautiful, young, successful people out there that we build for. Now, ideally, as a JavaScript developer, you should always come up with a defensive mechanism for your code. Be as paranoid as you can be to understand what you're doing in your JavaScript, because things break and you don't want that end user to click on that button that does nothing, because that is a contract broken of trust with your end user. It's not funny. And again, we had standards for that, and we had ECMAScript standards, we had best practices in JavaScript that have been proven themselves over the years, all the time, and we got very, very cocky about those and say like, yeah, you got to write your JavaScript that way. Unobtrusive JavaScript was one of the courses that I've written. DOM scripting was one of the books that I've written. And all of these things are methodologies around JavaScript, how to do that. Of course, again, there's going to be a backlash to that. So people say, you know what? How about we use libraries? If you use jQuery, everything is fine, right? And we did that. We wrote libraries and one frameworks to work around browser issues, to work around things that are different from browser to browser, and to give us a better methodology to build massive applications on the web. That's great. That's good. It moved the web forward. It moved JavaScript, the language, forward as well. But all of those are actually JavaScript dependent. And we still build something that might be brittle and might need to download a massive library just to have a little hover effect over something, where we should think about, like, do we really need that effect if it's on an older browser, or should we let older browsers die? Answer, yes. Don't do anything for Internet Explorer 6. Internet Explorer 6 users are not used to beauty. Don't confuse them. Of course, you got Stack Overflow, copy and paste. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. I call this the full Stack Overflow developer, where people copy and paste things that they don't understand, they just work. And that accumulates to more and more and more and more until you have things like the average websites being 2.2 megabyte in size. That's from HTTP Archive. This is the average. This is not the offending websites of the 17, 18 meg websites that you download to find the restaurant name or something like that after that download. 2.2 megabyte doesn't sound much, but you go in Europe on holiday and you turn on your roaming, and then it's going to be a lot. I was in Albania the other day, and it was per megabyte I would pay £12, which means your website costs the same as a cinema ticket. So it better be as good as Deadpool was. Of course, while we're breaking the web that way, and old ranty people like me get very annoyed that people build 4 megabyte websites because they don't understand that everything you put in is a dependency for your end user as well. While that happened, the market changed as well. As I said before, the web is not cool anymore. You can't go to a dinner party and say, like, I'm a web developer. Like, you know, like, where it's like, oh, that thing on your app, that phone thing, I built that. Oh, cool. You know, yeah, not really anymore, but one hopes, you know. The mobile web came around, smartphones came around, and they were like a step back to the old days, if you think about it. The mobile was a throwback to the web of old because we had small screens, bad connectivity, and unreliable browser support. We did not know what browser our users had. And we had the problem that the browsers in mobile environments were not necessarily standard compliant as well, because then the race started. Every mobile phone provider had to do something different than other people did. And this is where it got really, really bad for us as developers. We had constantly changing conditions. Your connectivity at home with your wireless on your phone might be amazing. As soon as you go out, it's not amazing any longer. Halfway through a download, you could get into a tunnel, and out of a sudden that JavaScript doesn't get loaded, that content doesn't get loaded, and you show people a spinner, which is basically, every time there's a loading spinner, it's basically, I hate you. Like, my problem? Not anymore. You just look at that spinner, look how beautiful it is. I hope you're having lots of time in your hand. We make our end users, our problems as developers, our end users' problems. And we have hardwired browser and hardware with unpredictable upgrades. You had to wait for the next version of Android to get a better browser, for the next version of iOS to get another browser. Then you had to hope that the hardware provider didn't build their own browser and put it in there, that they forked from WebKit 3 years ago, put lots of ads in it and lots of content. And you didn't know what as a web developer what to do. Out of a sudden we had millions and millions of browsers to deal with, and not like 2 or 3 of them, which was a bad beginning anyways back then. So the answer from mobile phone providers was apps. Instead of the web, apps, much easier. Go to a marketplace, buy the app, click the icon, happiness. Everything is fine, everything is cool. And it was at the beginning, it really was. It's like, this is exciting. Like, you found people who would never understand the web and find it hard to type a domain in or type a URL in to basically download something from a marketplace and put it in there and just start using it. And of course, us web guys were like, oh God. We felt a great disturbance in the web, and millions of links suddenly died in terror and suddenly silenced as something terrible has happened. Because none of these apps had a URL. They were content that you bought in a marketplace that was closed, that you needed a credit card for, that you needed to log into, that probably wasn't available in your country yet. Totally opposite of what the web was about. And even more evil, and I'm going to be smug about this later, it's bringing the old adage of inbuilt obsolescence to software. You cannot charge for a new version of a website, but you can charge for the next version of an app. You can make an app vanish. You can take it away from end users. You can make it not work any longer. The end user is not in control. And with the internet, the end user was always in control. So we seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life. We're doomed. And it's about that we actually go back and fix our droids and not do anything else any longer. And I thought goat farming would be one thing that comes to mind. Because we cannot beat apps. Apps are terrible. They're basically, they won out. Everybody was apps. You know, remember on trains you saw like download our app. I was in a coffee shop yesterday where it's like download our app to get the coffee free. And I'm like, what happened to these stamp things that I can carry with me? You know? Why do I have to download 50 meg to actually get a free coffee? Probably on my roaming, it costs more than the coffee to download your app. And of course, then we stood up as the web developers and said, like, don't be too proud of the technological nightmare you constructed. The ability to control distribution update cycles is insignificant next to the power of the web. The web will prevail. And it does. You cannot shut down the web. You cannot kill the web. Trump is wrong, again. The web will be with you always. So we thought, okay, the web is a creative environment, and its flexibility of its code base is the cool stuff. You can build everything with JavaScript. You can build desktop apps, mobile apps, websites, servers. You can script Illustrator in JavaScript. That's pretty awesome, that kind of versatility. So we built mobile web apps. So we said, okay, we can package up HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and put it in the marketplace and let it compete with the others. Obviously, the open technology will always win because it's open and beautiful. Not so much. Most of the things that we built with web technology and we played by the rules of closed marketplaces didn't work out. Mostly because, I'm not going to mention names, it's a company with a fruit logo, gave us a browser that didn't give us the technology necessary to access the hardware. We could not do the cool things that a phone was used for, like accessing the camera, accessing the geolocation, accessing the accelerometer, finding new interaction models. They weren't available in JavaScript. And of course, other players in the market, Mozilla, my former company, not my company, the company I worked in, we opened up lots of new standards and defined them and wrote an operating system built on HTML5, making the world a better place, and it didn't work out. Because in essence, it was who's got the coolest phone. Having an iPhone compared to an Android that is cheaper is not a matter of like having the better technology. It's a different level of social status. I got proven that when I worked with the police in London and they told me mobile phones stolen, iPhones no problem whatsoever to resell them. Android phones, people stopped stealing the old ones because it's really not worth it. But when you steal an iPhone, you got the cool new thing, you're a different level, you're a different social class. And this is kind of annoying to me as some bleeding heart liberal to basically like, why is technology only for the rich and the Western world? And how come we identify ourselves with the thing we access the internet with? I never understood it with cars either. It's like you don't get more intelligent and beautiful by having a good car. You get stuck in traffic most of the time in the places that we live. And again, it didn't quite work out because we built the things in open technology of the web, but we forget to embrace what makes the web good, which is the link, which is the updating things on demand rather than updating them and asking the user to download a full new application. We did not make our solutions, our web technology-based app solutions, use the power of the web and use how the web was built. We just tried to mimic what the native environments did, and that means playing catch-up. That means always losing because who innovates in the dark without telling other people, we cannot predict what they're going to do. Trying to predict what Apple did next was impossible. What Google did next was impossible as well. At least with Google, you have open source. You can look at the source code and see like, oh, this feature is coming, so that will probably be in the next version of Android, these kind of things. And the cool thing is, and now I can be smug about this, because 2 years ago I gave a TEDx talk where I predicted that apps are going to die because they're going to implode onto themselves. They are the old idea of inbuilt obsolescence and forcing the user to do something that they don't want to, but they think they have to at the moment to be cool. And the numbers are there right now. And there's a few links there. You can look it up yourself as well. The average American downloads 0 apps per month right now because we're super busy playing Facebook, playing a few games that we discard a week later, being on WhatsApp, being on Snapchat. We are already saturated. We have all the things we need, and we don't want to have another thing that annoys us and tells us on our phone what to do next. I remember when the smartphones came out, it was all about like, you're going to plan your whole day in your smartphone. It's going to tell you when you are, where you are, what to do next. And what do we do now? We spend most of our time on the smartphone on the toilet. I think it's by design that the internet here and the mobile connectivity doesn't work on the toilet here. That's why there weren't any queues earlier. You know, it becomes this kind of like pure consumerist thing. Download new things, find new things out. And it gets really evil. The other day, I played Angry Birds. I wanted to play the original Angry Birds again, which was cool when it came out. I know the guys who run the company, and I'm like, this is awesome. Let's download the old Angry Birds. Let's be like retro about this. And the original Angry Birds that you download right now on the Android store lets you play a level, and then shows you a 30-second advertisement for the newer versions of Angry Birds or the video after each level. And you can't pay to get rid of that. It's basically unusable, it's unplayable, because they want you to always use the newest thing, the newest thing, the newest thing. And that is of course cool for our developers, that is cool for the company, that is cool for showing you new stuff, but for end users it's super annoying. Also, the operating systems have become too good for our good as app developers. Most of the stuff that Apple gives me already or Google gives me already on Android or on iOS that I had to download apps for years ago, like weather, travel, these kind of things. It's all built in. We got all these Siri, or we got Google Now, or Cortana. We've got all the information at our fingertips from the operating system without having to download extra apps. That's why people don't download apps any longer. You have to be very, very good to list something here and get something downloaded. The more you tighten your grip, the more initial users will slip through your fingers. And there is research that proves that. From 1,000 people that you want to have for your applications, the first visit to the App Store will have a drop-off of 200. People are like, no, I'm not going to go to the App Store to download your thing from a website or from from Facebook or something like that. Finding the app is another 640 users, because a lot of times you cannot link directly to it. They have to type in the name and not mistype the name. There's a big thing about mistyped apps and that are malware. It's quite fun that you find them faster than the others. Then clicking install, you got 512 users left. Accepting the permissions, you know, when you ask for everything, like can you please give your firstborn son and some blood to actually access this game to play some colorful blocks crashing against each other, 410 users. Download and wait for the download to finish, 328 users. A lot of people cancel when halfway through they realize your app was 50 meg big. And then you got 262 users left. So that is a fifth of the original people, fourth of the original. The other three quarter you lost because of how the thing was built. How many obstacles we put in the way of our end users to download something and access the content that they would happily pay for and happily be at. Of course, once you have these things on your phone, every 2 days they tell you, oh, please download a new one, because we don't have any updates in the application itself. We changed the background color. That's 50 megabyte download for you, 50 megabyte download for you. Please, please upgrade, because not of features that you wanted, probably an app that you haven't used for a month, but they ask you every time you go to on a wireless after being on the road, you get like, oh God, 60 of them downloading, and you can fry an egg on your phone afterwards. It's just not fun. Even better, I was in Germany. Germany doesn't do Uber, because unions and all kind of stuff. So there's an app called My Taxi, which is clever. And I thought in England, on my fast connection, I download the app before I go to Germany, because in Germany I have no connectivity at all, because I don't have any roaming, and I don't get any SIM card in Germany if I don't have an address there. So I tried to download it before I went, and it told me, this item is not available in your country. So I have to be in the country where I use the app to download it, where I don't have any connectivity. So I'm like, okay, I probably do the thing that I'm paying the taxi driver with my credit card or cash instead of downloading an app. How about that? Although when you ever go to Germany and you say like, I've got an American Express card, can I pay with that? That translates to, can I please slap your children around and I hate you? Because you cannot pay with American in any of the taxis. They don't want them because it costs them far too much. But that's aside. The web will be with you always. Native apps are dying. The model is collapsing in and of itself because people don't want to be controlled. People want to get information when they need it, discard it, try something out quickly, pay later after they've seen it, not after they downloaded 120 meg and installed it and uninstalled it. How many times have we tried something out and uninstalled it immediately? Like, that was half an hour of my life wasted. So why would it work now when we failed before to take web technology into the app space? Why would it be better now? It's a good question, because we failed with WebOS, we failed with Firefox OS, we failed with many, many other Tizen. All these different competitors to iOS and Android didn't quite make it. But Android now realizes the web is the power as well, because Google is a search engine that gets money for displaying ads. So giving links power is probably a good thing for them. And Apple realizes that as well, that you cannot just control people that much. So mobile browsers are much, much better now than they used to be. You can go to caniuse.com, where you can see which browser supports what. And on the mobile space, there's not many red there. It's getting green and yellow as well. So people start understanding that the mobile browsers have to be better and have to be evergreen as well. The web views and the OS are updating independently, so you don't have to wait for the next version of Android to get the newest version of Chrome. That's great. That's how the web should be. I should not have to upgrade to a new operating system to get a better browser. A certain company that I work for right now made that mistake and realizes it's a bad idea. A lot of the hardware access APIs are standardized. So it's not like, oh, do something for iOS, do something for Android, do something for Chrome, do something for Mozilla. They are all standardized right now. And the upgrade paths are more affordable. So getting a new phone, getting your contract every half year, getting a newer phone is not as expensive as it used to be in the beginning. So older Android phones are vanishing faster than they actually used to do. So we have proper browsers to support. Now APIs are amazing what you can access nowadays. Battery status is in JavaScript available to you. So finding out that the phone is on 10%, turn off your animations. Do it as a nice, pleasant thing to your end users. Give them a simplified interface that gives them a chance to do the task rather than give them whiz-bang stuff that eats their battery without anything needed. Camera access is as easy as putting an input element in your HTML. You don't even need JavaScript for that anymore. Device motion, orientation, shaking the thing around, you get events for that one in JavaScript now as well. You can read files by byte, not just load them in by generating an image and finding out these things like that. You have full byte access to streaming files into the document. That way you can do uploads that you used to do in Flash with like a progress bar. You can do that in JavaScript nowadays. You have media capture, so instead of just taking a picture, you can also turn on the camera and get the video stream and do things with the video stream directly in the browser live. I'm doing that right now for emotion detection, for people like smile to unlock your phone. These kind of things, it's good fun because everybody in the office smiles that way. Network information, you can say, okay, that is on a wireless, that is on a 3G. This is assuming it. This is just a connection from you to your provider and then to the internet, anything still happen. But you can say, okay, this is a fast connection right now, it works, download some stuff in the background to later on do something good with it. And you got vibration API if you just want to get the user to find something out. Everything that native had that we simulated in the past is now available in the browsers except for address book access, and that's a damn good thing. Of course, one of the biggest things that I always had when I talk to people about HTML5 apps is they don't work offline. And they did not. We had a few things to make them work, but now we have a new API, a new way of developing things that is spearheaded by Google and by Mozilla, and we're working on it as well. Safari is also interested in it, and that's called Service Worker. And this is much better than App Cache, the old way of allowing for offline functionality. I can't go into detail here, I don't have the time for it, but Service Worker is basically a scriptable HTTP proxy in JavaScript. So even before your page renders, I can do stuff with data coming in. I can take content from the web, put it in a database, and access that database when your page has loaded. So I have full control over the network stack in JavaScript. Of course, I can't make it faster, but I know how fast it is, and I know where I can download and put into different caches. And this new functionality turns into a new thing called progressive web apps. And that is the thing. There's 2 days from now, when I'm going to be there in Amsterdam, there's a progressive web app summit, where you can download a lot of videos, you can order from Google I/O, you can see a lot of them. This is the hot new thing to look forward to. Because they work offline using Service Worker. That's the most important thing. They also allow you to control what is being cached by the browser and what isn't. They can hibernate and notify on change, so you can turn off the app, and when a change in the app happens, you can get a notification and say like, hey, you want to come back to me? I download some new data for you. How cool is that? Rather than like, oh, you need to go to the App Store and refresh it and download something new. There are possible progressive enhancement of a working standard website. You don't need to start with Service Worker. Service Worker is an add-on to an HTML page that you do right now. You can make your website, turn it into an offline capable website just by adding a Service Worker. It's not a starting point, it's an enhancement of what we're already doing. And it's more functionality with subsequent visits. So this means I go to your website the first time, the Service Worker kicks in, and you can notify the user, hey, the second time you come to your page, I'm available offline now, so you don't have to click through everything. It's not going to cost you any time, cost you any traffic to download the rest of the page. You can also ask people, hey, you come here often, do you want to have an icon on your home screen? And then open it in a full screen rather than in the browser. So instead of going through the marketplace and going through the install and conversion, we convert websites into app-like experiences with the full control by the user, and the user saying yes or no instead of us telling them to download something packed. The link is the distribution model. So instead of telling people go to the marketplace, find my app, please download it, here's a link, you click it, the thing opens and says like, hey, I'm an app, do you want to be offline? Shall I get the data in the background for you, or just want to try me out quickly? If you don't, you can discard me later, there's nothing on your machine when I'm gone. All the benefits of native apps, none of the sluggish distribution issues. The marketplace is out of the window, but you can still list them in the other marketplaces if you wanted to. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. So that distribution model can be an add-on to the web distribution model. It's a natural evolution of web content into the mobile form factor instead of just the mobile form factor being a different one. And it's a big opportunity to crack the closed distribution model, which is dying already. So it's a good opportunity to bring the web back to mobile environments. There's some good use cases already. Flipkart in India is like an Amazon where you can buy things. And they found 3 times more time on page. And that's not waiting for things to load, but people clicking around and finding things and buying things and interacting with them. They found 40% higher re-engagement. So coming back to the site with a notification saying like, hey, you bought this, the add-on to that is now available, do you want to buy this kind of thing? 70% greater conversion from the home screen, people opening up, staying in there, paying, and having the thing. Not like, okay, oh, I need to update first. Oh, your phone is not fast enough. Please have another kind of step in between. And 3 times lower data usage, and that is super important. The next users are not going to be in New York, not going to be in San Francisco, not going to be in England. They're going to be in Africa, India, Indonesia, all these countries where connectivity is mobile and terrible. So the less data your app uses, the more happier your end users will be. And even people here might be that bought a SIM card with like 2 GB per month, and they had their child playing a few games, and they already ran out of it. They'd be happy if your website doesn't get another 20 meg and just downloads 200K for them to be able to pay their taxes or to get their electricity bill. So, progressive web apps is a really, really big change. I won't say market changer because that's terrible. But it's going to be an interesting thing for all of us to turn what we have here as web experiences, to turn them into offline experiences, turn them into experiences for users to contribute to, for users to change. And instead of telling them to go to a marketplace and be at the beck and call of some mobile phone provider, it's web-wide. It works on desktop, it works on mobile, it works on tablet, it works on fridges, cars, cats, whatever, Internet of Things, socks, whatever we put the thing, it will work there as well because it's based on standards and based on open standards, much like the things that Tim Berners-Lee wanted us to use. And with that, I thank you very much.